Let your creativity grow wild, just like a late summer garden in full bloom. And that's the inspiration behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms August Maker's Box. Hi, I'm Sylvia from Backyard Brushes in Fountain City, Wisconsin. In today's video, we're completing 3 thrift flips using materials from Sonnet's August Maker's Box. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's get creating. In this month's box, we have Queen Anne by The Painted Photographer and also Artist Garden Rice Papers by The Painted Photographer. For recycled decoupage paper, we had Field and Feather and also the Botanical Curiosity. The DIY paints are Eden and Beadboard, and for Fusion, we have Raw Silk and Homestead Blue. And my favorite paint, Sweet Pickins Milk Paint, we have Haberdash. Sonnet always includes a beautiful napkin and a great thank you card with all of the above information. For project 1, I am using the Sweet Pickins Milk Paint Haberdash to paint a wood plank that I picked up at the Goodwill, and I believe it might actually be a homemade plank. I am mixing 1-to-1 ratio of the Sweet Pickins Milk Paint to some warm water. I'll mix it up as the best that I can, and then I let it sit for about 10 minutes plus so that the water and the paint pigments can absorb and mix together well. And it kind of thickens up to like the consistency of a melted milkshake. And for the plank, it had really good bones, and I think it was like $3.99. So I'm starting on the back of the board, and I'm using the Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. I always complete the back of my projects. And you can see it's kind of like the color of cement, that gray. So on the front of the board, I'm going to use Sweet Pickins wax brick. I don't know exactly what it's called, but I did get mine from Connie, the Painted Photographer. And I'm just smearing that wax all over the board randomly and giving it a full coat of the Sweet Pickins in the Haberdash. And when you use milk paint, do expect to take 2 different coats. And after each coat, I heated it with the heat gun, and then I sanded the paint back and got some chippiness. I decided it was a little dark, so I'm going to use the white cover by Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. And I am going to, or not white covered, window pane, sorry, by Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. And again, I'm rubbing that wax bar randomly over the paint, and I'm applying 2 coats using the heat gun in between each coat, just like I did for the gray, on top of the Haberdash. And it's just, with milk paint, it's really random the effects you're going to get, but I do believe the wetter the paint and the more heat you use, the more chance you get of that really good chippiness. However, I did have the wax underneath the paint, so it sanded down and chipped really well. And because I had the white on top of the gray, I got some really good layers. So then I went back and I did paint the back of the board. Next, I decided to use Summer Crush by DIY with weathered wood. And I just mixed up the 2 colors in a disposable bowl. You can use whatever you'd like for your palette. And I just kind of mixed those colors up, and I painted the clip that was attached to the board. I was unable to remove the clip the way that it was screwed in. My drill, I couldn't get the right angle. I did seal it with DIY Big Top, and I attached Connie's picture, and it was just an easy flip, and I think it looks really great with that layered look. For project 2, I got these, I don't know, galvanized planters. They were on clearance for $1, I believe. And so I'm starting out by just I'm using white linen by Rust-Oleum chalk paint, and I'm giving it 2 good coats of white paint to cover up the background. Once I've got that done, I am going to choose the Decoupage paper by Royce, and I believe this one is the Field and Feather. And I'm just cutting it out I just cut the paper right in half, and I'm going to use 1/2 for the front and 1/2 with the back. Using and first, I almost always forget to mist my decoupage papers. It loosens up the fibers, and it actually, I know it seems weird, but it actually, you have less chance of wrinkles with the damp paper. So I wet my paper down. I'm using DIY liquid patina and spreading it on the first portion of the can, starting at the side with the seam. And I'm just going to start placing the decoupage paper down, lining it up with the seam. I am using a little extra on both the top and the bottom since it's a curved and tapered the object is curved and tapered. It's not just going to be a straight line of paper. So I do want extra paper on the top and bottom as the paper is adhered to the canister, and with the tapering, it's just going to take a little bit more extra paper, and I just want to have plenty of room. So I got my paper started on the edge, and I'm just going to, in sections, add that DIY liquid patina, placing the paper right on top and moving right over and across the container. I use my hands to gently smooth out the wrinkles as I go. And this paper, you want to be careful with it, but you are able to move and adjust it still at this point. Just do it gently. And then I just use my hands and my fingers to help smooth out some of those wrinkles. And I'm just pressing down and moving my way down the front of the canister from one end to the other end, seam to seam. And I just love the colors Royce used in this paper. I'm just continuing on using the liquid patina and the paper. And I do know that if I had too many wrinkles, I can always use the parchment paper method to iron them out. But when I was done with this, attaching the paper to the canister, I had very minimal wrinkles, so I didn't feel the need. Once I had the paper all attached, I did take a finger sander, which I wasn't too good at getting on film, and in that up and down motion, I am lightly sanding the ridge of the canister and taking off the excess decoupage paper. And it's just important to go up and down, as side to side, there's more chance of the paper ripping. So I just go up and down, making my way around the canister. This is the bottom of the canister, and removing the decoupage paper. And if you don't have a finger sander, you could use a small grit sandpaper, and some people even use a nail file. So you can pick one of those up at the dollar store too. Using the Homestead Blue Fusion Mineral Paint, I just went around the edges of the top of the canister. Using an IOD mold of the sunflowers, I used the quick drying resin and I casted a sunflower. Using DIY paint, I used the little black dress and I just went inside the center of the sunflower. I just wanted to have a little bit darker background before I go in now with the weathered wood, which is a lighter brown, but not a real, I don't know, fudgy brown. I don't know how to really describe it. Then I did feel it was a little dark after I added the weathered wood. So I used wick from, or excuse me, wood wick from Fusion, and I was able to lighten it up in the center. And I also used the raw silk on top of the wood wick to give it a little bit of detail and dimension. And I don't know if you can tell or not in the video, but I tend to place my paint on top of it and layer it more than blending. As you tend to blend paint, it becomes more of a solid color versus the different colors when you use the layering technique. So using Summer Crush, I just kind of made my way around the edge of the center of the flower, and I just laid that Summer Crush right down. I also prepared the DIY Queen Bee, and after I get the Summer Crush down, I'm going to start bringing in and layering on top the Queen's Bee. And I don't want it to be like perfect lines. And with all the detail in the IOD mold, I just kind of followed the mold and the lines in the mold, and using that Queen Bee and the Summer Crush, just making my way around. And with all the detail in these molds, you could probably just paint it one shade of yellow, and then using a white wax or a dark wax, you could go right over into it, and you're still going to get a lot of that detail. You do not have to be an expert painter or a trained painter or any kind of special artist to be able to paint the molds and get all that detail, just due to how, I mean, it's incredible how much detail they have in these molds. So I'm just layering that Queen Bee right after and bringing in some of that Summer Crush. And just using the paint and a small brush, I just slowly make my way around the flower. And I do kind of think of it like, if the light is hitting the flower, the back petals will probably be darker than the front petals. So more of that Summer Crush is in the back petals to help bring that beeswax, or excuse me, not beeswax, Queen Bee, brighter into the front. And I just work my way around the sunflower, laying that Queen Bee down, using the Summer Crush as a highlight. Now, once I have it completely covered, I decided to use the Raw Silk by Fusion Mineral Paint, and I just start randomly adding white lines coming off the petals just to add a little bit more detail. And there was no rhyme or reason. Seriously, I just followed the details that were already in the mold. It's almost like paint by number without having the numbers. And you can see how that white really helped make those petals pop. I then sealed it with liquid patina. Then I decided it was too bright for the paper, so I used the dark wax by DIY, and I just went around the petals. If you notice, I did not go into the center of the sunflower. And then I just kept wiping it down, taking off some of that extra wax, using a paper towel. And I think I went around it like 3 times, just, getting in the crevices and taking that wax off. And then I did seal it again with liquid patina. Then I decided to use the E600 glue, yet it takes like 24 hours to set, but once it's set, it's not coming off. So I also coupled it with a Type Bond, which sets within 10 to 20 minutes. And I have both glues on the back of the sunflower, and I'm just gonna place it where I'm eyeballing it. I'm not, measuring anything out, just what looks good to me. The glue hasn't dried yet, so I have a little bit of wiggle room, just eyeing it up, and I'm placing the sunflower on the canister. For project 3, I'm using wooden skirt pant hangers. I always pick them up when I'm at the thrift store. I painted the first hanger in the Homestead Blue by Fusion Mineral Paint, and it only took 1 coat. The second hanger, I used the Eden by DIY, which is a beautiful green. While the paint was drying, I unrolled a burlap table runner that had been for a different project, and I placed it over an 11 by 14 canvas board that I have in my garage, and I used that to measure out where to cut. And then using Type Bond glue, I just laid some glue down on the edge of the burlap, and I just folded it right over. I just used my fingers. I didn't do anything special at all. I just wanted to prevent it from unraveling where I cut it. And to be honest, I didn't want to go out in the garage and go get my heat gun and heat it up. And the Type Bond was already there from my previous project, and it worked just fine. I then went over it with the Cricut mini press, just kind of to give it that crease and I don't know, it felt like it was extra sealing it. I don't know if it really did anything much. And I also ironed the burlap a little bit. I printed out the digital press papers by Sonnet, which is a new addition this year to her maker's box, and I love them. You can also, if you need to reduce the size, just change the size in your printer options when you print. Using the wet brush method, I just wet around the edges, used my fingernail and went around the edges and tore them off, giving it kind of that jagged look. I brought out my piece of burlap, and I did use the liquid patina as my decoupage medium. It worked. I'm not, disappointed. I have also in the past used decoupage mediums that are made for cloth, and it did take less decoupage medium when the patina is specifically made for cloth versus the liquid patina. However, the liquid patina did work just fine. So I just went down in sections, used a little bit more liquid patina than I normally do, and just worked my way down. Once I had the whole piece of paper attached, I did seal the top with the decoupage medium. I used a laser printer and a Mulberry rice paper that I had ordered off Amazon for these projects, and it works beautiful with these digital press. And I can leave that link in the description if anyone is interested in the products that I used in order to print out for the digital press. After I'd sealed the liquid patina on, I grabbed a piece of parchment paper, set it right on top using the Cricut mini press on high heat. I did go over the whole piece, hoping it would help seal the liquid patina. It also minimized wrinkling. Using weathered wood by DIY. No, I take that back. For this one, I used Dark and Decrepit by DIY and a small brush, and I just laid the paint down on the torn edges. For the second one, I used the same method using that canvas 11 by 14, and I cut a piece of drop cloth. I ironed the drop cloth. It was a little bit more wrinkly than the burlap. I was actually going to sew the edges of the drop cloth. However, I had a little issue with the sewing machine, so I didn't, but I might just go back with a needle and thread and do the edges. Or I could probably use glue or the heat gun also. Not the heat gun, but the hot glue. And I attached the paper the exact same way I attached the previous paper. The hanger was dry, so I'm using Vaseline randomly over the Eden paint. And I'm gonna do this also on the blue hanger with the Vaseline method. And I also did the little plastic clip that was attached to the one hanger. And Vaseline, I keep it, it's like one of my most used items in my toolbox. And it helps prevent the paint from adhering to each other. So using the Raw Silk by Fusion Mineral Paint, I just went right over the Eden paint on the wood hanger. And I did end up doing 2 coats this time. And then I applied heat. I'm using the heat gun and that heat directly on it and the Vaseline underneath the paint, it really started to bubble. Using the finger sander, I went over it and it chipped beautifully and very easily. And it just came right off and it gave me that rustic, worn, vintage look that I just love. For the second hanger, I am using the beadboard by DIY, and it took 2 coats. I did not apply the heat, and I just lightly sanded it. So I got a little bit of that distressing, but I did not get all that chippiness that I did with the previous hanger. I sealed both hangers with DIY big top. For the handles, I was going to do the weathered wood in Summer Crush and make it look a little rusty, as I had learned from Connie, the painted photographer. But as I was adding the weathered wood, I actually liked the look it gave. So I just sealed it with Big Top. I attached the pictures to the hangers using lace that I buy in these nice little bulk rolls from Amazon, which I can also leave in the description. I just pulled together a messy bow. I'm not the best bow maker. Nobody wants to learn to make bows from me. Yet I just tied these pieces of lace together and attached them to the hangers. And actually the project was done. And you could do this. You can switch them out if you keep them for yourself. You could just keep printing out these digital papers with the boxes and switch your paper and your picture out all year long, giving it a nice fresh look for the current season. And I will leave a link in the description box below if you're interested in ordering the box and want to skip the wait list. I'd love to know which one of today's projects was your favorite and if you're going to try any of them. And if you found this video inspirational, please hit subscribe below and follow me along on my creative journey. Thank you.